Welcome back, everybody, to Rock Video Rental. We are continuing with our review of the Karate Kid series, and today we will be talking about The Karate Kid Part 2 from 1986. It is directed by John G. Elvidson. The plot is Daniel accompanies his mentor, Mr. Miyagi, to Miyagi's childhood home in Okinawa. Miyagi visits his dying father and confronts his old rival, while Daniel falls in love and inadvertently makes a new rival of his own. The cast. You got Ralph Macchio returns as Daniel LaRusso, Pat Morita as Mr. Miyagi, and I'll probably slaughter some of these names, so stick with me. Yuji Okamoto as Shozen, Danny Kamakona as Sato, and Tamlin Tomita as Kumiko. Or Kumiko. Um, yeah, this one is it's I feel like this is one of those sequels that was handled rather well because it takes a lot of familiar things from the first movie, but changes it up enough to make it feel different.
Mhm.
It doesn't rely so much on the first movie, not something like the Hangover movies where it's just like the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
Where, this one's more about this is really more of a Mr. Miyagi movie than it is a Daniel movie.
Yeah. And this one, well, we made a couple comments before we started recording, but it's long and it felt very slow compared to the
Yeah,
first
some of the
one.
things are rather slow compared to the first one. Um, this movie has a lot of good things going for it, and then other things that probably could have been cut out or cut back.
Yeah. It's actually kind of funny because when I started watching the movie, I remembered this as being it picked up right where it left off,
Yeah,
which technically it kind of does, but it does that little like recap at the beginning.
yeah.
My thought was, once they get past the recap and they are walking out of the arena and then
Hmm.
they walk into the parking lot, I thought the movie started right there.
Okay.
So, it's just kind of funny that, I forgot about the recap and everything because we've talked about that previously about how that's a very uncommon thing to pick up a movie as soon as the previous one left off. So technically this one did it, but it did have the recap. So
Yeah. Um, it's like this and Halloween 2 are like the only two that I can think of that kind of pick up. That Halloween 2 also has a small recap at the beginning of it.
wasn't there
So,
Friday the 13th?
yeah,
Oh no,
it's part
it wasn't
4.
right after. It was the next day. That's what it was.
Yeah, and they kind of give like what happened. Yeah, because the Friday 13th movie is always like the recap.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, this one we kind of get, after the recap of what happens in the first one, we get that weird shower scene of
Mhm.
Daniel in the shower. Mr. Miyagi's kind of standing outside talking to him, and they leave the building, and that's when John Kreese kind of has his moment with Mr. Miyagi, and kind of pushes him aside and walks off. Uh, and that's when John Kreese walks up to Johnny, and he's telling him how he's a loser and how he's nothing, and uh, Johnny's like, I got second place, and that's pretty good. And he rips the trophy out of his hands and snaps it, and Johnny calls him a loser, and he's like, now who's a loser? And he throws the trophy, and I always laugh at that part. So I'm like, still you, dude. uh, Johnny
And
gets
then he
pissed.
chokes him out.
Yeah, Johnny gets pissed and like tries to hit him, and John Kreese like puts him in a sleeper hold and like starts choking him out, and that's when Mr. Miyagi steps in and he tells him to let him go, and uh, Kreese basically tells him, mind your own business, and Mr. Miyagi um, gets him to let him go forcefully, and then Kreese takes a swing at him, puts his hand through a car window, and then does it again on the other side.
Who would have thought? 2 times in a row.
Yeah, right. And then, Miyagi grabs up and he's like, "Mercy is for the weak. We do not show mercy in this dojo." Um, the opponent is
Cobra.
your enemy and deserves no mercy. And you think like Miyagi's gonna take him out. He's got him like by the back of the head and he's gonna karate chop him in the face. And Miyagi screams, stops for an inch from his face, and then honks his nose. And then one of my favorite lines from the movie, because of how absurd it is, uh, Daniel says to him, he's like, "You could have killed him if you wanted to, couldn't you?" And Mr. Miyagi just goes, "Aye." And then Daniel says, "Then why didn't you?" I'm just thinking, like, probably because he doesn't want to be charged with murder
Yeah, right?
over a situation like that. Uh, yeah, that just cracks me up. And then Mr. Miyagi says something like, with a person like that, um, the humiliation is worse than death,
Mhm.
which is, just one of your typical Mr. Miyagi words of wisdom.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's when the movie kind of starts off. We get like a 5 months later thing. That's typical.
Meanwhile,
Very, yeah. Meanwhile, a typical 80s movie trope there of 5 months later. Uh, it could have been six. I don't remember the exact time frame.
it should have been some ridiculous like 5 months, 3 days, and 2 hours later.
27 days later. Um, yeah, so then we find out that, Daniel and Allie broke up, and uh, Daniel's mom's taking a job in Fresno, and he's going to have to move in with her. And then uh, Miyagi gets him to relax and focus and shows him like a breathing technique to get focus back. And he has Daniel like building something on the outside of his house. Daniel asks what it's for, and Miyagi in a roundabout way tells him that he's going to be staying with him because he talked to his mom, and so he doesn't have to go to Fresno. And that's when perfect '80s timing. The mailman shows up with a letter for Miyagi, and it's from his hometown saying that his father is gravely ill and he's going to pass away. So Miyagi better get over there and see his dad before he goes. And of course, Daniel has to tag along. He uses like the money he was going to use for college to get the plane ticket. Apparently, Daniel's mom is okay with him going to Japan.
I was pretty certain like it made me feel like he was just BSing it.
That his
Like,
mom said it was okay.
yeah, he's like, "Oh, my mom said it was okay." Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny because it's like, okay, they've known Mr. Miyagi for what, like a year? And I mean,
Yeah.
Mr. Miyagi's a great guy and like obviously really cares about Daniel. And, he's like his mentor and like a father figure to him. But at the same time, it's like, we don't know him all that well.
Yeah.
If you take him to another country on the other side of the planet. But all right, you do you. I
Well,
guess that was just
it
the
was
way
the
that,
80s, so, it was
yeah,
okay back
that's
then.
true. They probably took a gun on him on the plane with them too, and no one knew about it. Um, Miyagi probably smoked all the way there. Um, so they get to Okinawa, and we find out that Miyagi's best friend and him had a falling out when he was a young man because he fell in love with a girl that was arranged to be married to
Sato.
Miyagi's friend Sato. Um, and Sato wants to fight Miyagi to the death because he dishonored him and made him like look weak. And that's kind of like the whole part of the movie because soon after Miyagi gets there, his dad passes away, and of course Daniel finds a girl that he falls for. We get like a romance kind of shoehorned into the movie,
Mm-hmm.
where we get some montages, of course, complete with "Glory of Love" by Peter Cetera of Chicago fame. which
Hey, what's wrong with Chicago? Shut up.
I've got nothing against Chicago, and I actually enjoy that Peter's Terrace song. I'm not gonna lie, it's one of them that it's so amazingly 80s, and every time it comes on the radio, I always crank it up and laugh.
I
And like,
actually have. Oh, I was gonna say I actually have a bunch of their records because they had some cool album art.
yeah,
And
they
I mean,
always
they
did.
they have good music too. Not to.
Yeah, they got a pretty cool logo too.
Yeah.
The classic font there they had for their logo. Um, yeah, and I mean, it all comes ahead where their Sato's nephew Shozen kind of butts heads with Daniel, and they start like a little rivalry. And Sato like pretty much owns everything in town, and he's a very powerful person. And Shozen is like a straight up psychopath.
Yeah.
Like on numerous times he wants to kill Daniel. And Johnny was you know Johnny was just a bully, but at the same time he kind of a lot of the stuff he did was just reacting to things that Daniel did to him.
Yeah.
Where Shozen, you know, might be reacting to some of the stuff that Daniel did, but he takes it to an extreme.
hmm And he didn't. And this time Daniel's not the douchebag.
Yeah, pretty much. Because it's like there's one scene where Daniel punches him in the balls, and like Shozen's reaction to him punching him in the balls is like, I'm gonna murder this kid with a spear. Uh, Daniel's training kind of goes on. They get like there's this whole thing with a drum, like this little drum that's got like these bead arms on it that when you
This will
twist it, like
this will teach you the secret to karate.
yeah, this is like some secret, like last resort technique that Miyagi's dad passed down to him. And I don't know, it's just not as cool as the crane technique.
hmm
I they're kind of going for the same thing here, but it didn't land as good as the crane technique. Um, and this all builds up to like this one big final fight with Daniel and Shozen. Uh, Sato comes around because there's like this big hurricane and Miyagi saves his life. Um, they have like this big like ritual dance thing going on at this ancient temple, and that's when Shozen shows up to pick a fight with Daniel, and they're gonna fight to the death.
Yeah. At the temple, you just had to have been waiting for the guy to pop in from Temple of Doom and be like, Kalima.
It rips Daniel's heart out. Oh man!
Well, that
And
escalated quickly.
also, what it reminded me of was like the training montage from Kickboxer.
Yeah, I did. I did think of that. Well, now to talk about that scene though, like you were just talking about how Chosen was completely psycho. Like
Oh yeah,
this is the pinnacle of that.
yeah. He punches Kumiko in the face, which is Daniel's love interest.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, guy complete and an utter like psychopath. Uh, which it's funny to see him in his role because I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Better Off Dead,
No.
the John Cusack movie.
Mm-mm.
He has like a really small role in that too. Um,
Well, you want something funny, talking about
mhm.
small roles. Did you recognize anybody in the movie?
Your mom? No.
No, when they were in the street, Danielson and Kumiko, there was someone who came up and talked to her about
Yeah, dancing
the
at
party
this
and the
club.
dancing.
Yeah.
Did you recognize him?
No, I didn't. Oh my
That.
god, it's Jackie Chan.
Oh my gosh, that was perfect timing. No, that was BD Wong from
Oh,
Law and Order SVU.
oh, really? That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because then I went in on IMDb to check it out, of course, just to make sure, but it looked exactly like him. And he was under the name at that time of Brad Wong.
Brad Wong.
Brad Wong with two D's.
Whoa. Brad.
Brad,
Oh, I guess. Oh my God, it's Jackie Chan, or maybe it was Ping, Michael Scott's character.
no problem, Dr. Jones.
Oh man, Steve. That is definitely an inside joke that no one else will get.
I was
Um,
just gonna make that comment. I was like, nobody's gonna know what that's about.
yeah. So, obviously they had the fight here in the ancient temple, and of course, spoiler alert, Daniel wins. And he
No
does
way.
the exact same thing that Miyagi did the crease where he honks his nose.
And then it ends exactly like the first one ended.
Yeah, Mr. Miyagi standing there smiling and nodding. Um, yeah, I guess it's got a lot of corny elements to it, but in the end, I feel like it's a pretty worthy follow up to the first one.
Yeah,
It kind of falls more into like some of the cliche tropes that 80s teen movies had at the time, more than the first one does. Where the first movie, like, it's a great movie. It's really well done. The soundtrack is awesome. The acting's pretty good for a lot of young actors in it,
yeah,
and the characters are extremely well written. Where this one, some of them are a little cliche. Uh, some of the acting's maybe not the best. You know, we mentioned Chosen a lot of being like a crazy character. I feel like that guy did a decent job, but sometimes he comes off as kind of cartoonish. But I mean,
yeah.
maybe the character just kind of lends itself to that.
A little. I think it's becoming a staple phrase here on the podcast, but he was a little over the top.
Like Stallone in '87,
Yep.
like Chosen in '86.
Oh, the prequel.
But yeah, I don't know. Like I had a few notes for this, and I mentioned the line about Mr. Miyagi not want to be convicted of murder, and Daniel San's mom letting him fly to Japan with a man they've only known for like a year.
Hmm.
And Daniel San's life is risked like 5 times in this movie. Not to mention the crazy hurricane scene where he climbs a bell tower and he reaches to push a power line away from the bell tower.
Hmm.
Did you notice that? I noticed it the time this time I watched it, and I've watched this movie plenty of times. And then he thinks better of it and uses his belt to like whip the line away from the bell tower.
Yeah, even though once he whips it, it like technically doesn't do anything, but he
Yeah,
did it.
good job, Daniel-san. Save that little girl off the bell tower.
Yeah. Even though like somehow she was still out there after everybody had gone into the shelter.
Yeah, it's like they just forgot about her. Oh crap, there's an 8-year-old.
Wait, wasn't there somebody ringing the bell?
Oh yeah, that little girl, the cute little girl that from the the little village. Oh yeah, she's up there still. Um, yeah. Uh, there's a few things I like about this movie a lot. I like that final fight at the end. I feel like is extremely well done, and I also like that like you see Daniel go to use the crane technique, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I kind of think back to the first one where Daniel sees Miyagi doing it at the beach, and he's like, "What were you doing?" He said, "The crane technique." He's like, "Well, does it work?" He's like, "When done right, no can defend." So it just makes me think, Daniel's still learning the art of the crane technique. So obviously, Chosen had a way to defend that because Daniel didn't do it right.
Yeah.
So that that even does more to like add to the menacing um nature of Chosen, and
Mhm.
like you c- it makes you fear him a little more, and it makes it a little more believable that he is even better at fighting than Johnny was.
Yeah.
So he's more of a threat to Daniel than Johnny was even.
Hmm.
And I like that they took that character to a new level. Um, kind of the antagonist that they made him stronger than the last one to show Daniel San's progression within his art of karate.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I can get into some trivia here. I have a fair amount of it for this movie. Um, so the first one did so well that the work for this one started 10 days after the first one was released.
Holy crap.
Yeah, 10 days. Like, holy crap, this thing's really taken off. We gotta make a sequel now.
What were they, like the Friday the 13th crew or what?
Right. Pretty much. So, according to Martin Cove, who plays John Kreese, the blood on his hands when he breaks the windows was real and it was an accident on set.
Oh, what?
When they shot it, yeah, like the footage was left in the final cut because it looks so good.
Dang. So like,
Yeah,
wait, what? Like he didn't really break a window.
that's what I'm assuming from what he said.
So, okay. I would imagine that there were fake windows and maybe like something accidentally happened and
I'm assuming it was probably like sugar glass or whatever, but you can still get cut by that stuff.
oh yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I'm assuming what it was. No, because if it was real glass, he probably would have had like severed tendons and arteries and stuff in his arms.
Yeah. That
Uh,
would broken hands and all that.
oh yeah, for sure. So although this movie is set in Okinawa, the film was actually shot in Oahu, Hawaii.
Okay.
The island was chosen because it was similar to the climate of Japan, and it has a large Okinawan population. And it's just the convenience of shooting the movie on U.S. soil.
Yeah.
So totally tricked me. So the opening scenes, Daniel in the shower and a confrontation in the parking lot with Kreese, those were in the script for the original Karate Kid, but contrary to belief, they were never filmed. So they were shot specifically for Karate Kid Part Two.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah, because I always thought that those were just scenes from the first movie that they just put into the second one.
Yeah.
So Bill Conti chose to score this movie instead of Rocky Four. Coincidentally, Peter Cetera wrote the song "Glory of Love" for Rocky Four, but Sylvester Stallone rejected it in favor of "Hearts on Fire."
Hearts on fire.
Strong desire. Dude, that Rocky Four soundtrack is great.
Yeah.
Uh, and I know that was fun when you and I worked together that we would listen to a lot.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so there was a free nationwide screening of this movie on the 4th of July in 1986,
Oh, okay.
which is kind of cool. So in the scene on the airplane traveling to Okinawa, while Daniel is asking about Tomi Village, you can see the stewardess walk by in the shot who trips over something, but
Oh
it is
no.
left in the final cut. I never noticed that. So next time I watch it, I have to look out for that. It kind of makes me think of Star Wars, where the stormtrooper hits his head on the door, which I never noticed either until I heard about that and noticed it. Kind of funny.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you mentioned the stewardess. I don't know if this is the one specifically because she's playing stewardess 2, number 2,
Mm,
but I'm just going through and kind of clicking on some of the people in the movie and she only had 2 movie appearances
mm.
in The Karate Kid Part 2 and The Slayer from 1982.
Dude, I've seen The Slayer.
Well, that's why I mentioned it because I was just like, dude, I bet you've seen this.
It's weird. That is a very weird movie. It's almost like a ghost. It's a ghost that's like killing people.
Hmm.
It's like a slasher movie with the
Wait,
killer as a ghost.
way to ruin it for me. So thank you.
Well, that didn't really give anything away. That's really just the plot of the movie. So the last thing I got here is this movie had a $13 million budget and it made a 115 million in the box office.
Oh wow, not bad.
So yeah, very profitable. Um, and like I said, I think it's a pretty good sequel. And actually, when I gave a suggestion a few months ago, I suggested this movie because I watched it again and I always just kind of forget how much I enjoy this one.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some corny things in it. There's a lot of montages and just the whole romance between Daniel-san and Kumiko. Uh, and, I get some of your other weird scenes where Daniel and Kumiko are out and they go into a bar and these guys are like trying to karate chop through um, ice bricks.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Daniel gets challenged to do it by Shozen, and Mr. Miyagi puts up a whole bunch of money, and of course, Daniel does it.
Yeah, with
Uh,
no training.
yeah, with no training at all. And there's so many things with that that just make me laugh. It's like, okay, all these dudes are just like, let's karate chop through ice and bet on it. And then the fact it's like, how many of these blocks do they have? Do they have like a big freezer full of them?
Well, yeah.
Do they have like an ice maker that just specifically makes these blocks? And like, how
Yeah.
many how many do they have so they can just keep doing this?
Who knows? That is funny because that is not something that ever thought of.
Yeah, in this tiny little village in Okinawa.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of
Well, I mean,
interesting.
that part kind of made a little sense to me because, the military base, and so they have different, you know, things to cater to uh military men and things like that. And so, of course, when those strongman competition or whatever you want to call it makes sense.
Hmm. And so the whole, I guess, kind of like a last thought I have, like the whole romance between Kumiko and Daniel-san makes me laugh because Daniel-san's only there for like a couple weeks, isn't he, with Mr. Miyagi?
Yeah, I think
Like to
so.
get all of his father's like stuff in order,
Hmm.
and then they're gonna leave, and Daniel's like trying to set a future with this girl. She lives in this tiny little village in Okinawa, Japan, and it's obvious that that village doesn't have very much money. She wants to be a dancer, and Daniel's like, "You should come to the United States and go to school to dance." I'm like, she's this girl that lives in this teeny tiny little village, doesn't have very much money. Like they all live in like shacks.
Yeah.
Like, how is she gonna have the money to go to the U.S. and then they're acting like they're gonna be together forever? I'm like, he's only here for like a week. I mean, if you
Yeah.
guys are gonna go out and like be friends and hang out together and you can't control if you're attracted to someone, I guess, and have like chemistry with them, but like,
You can
can you
you
not
can
talk about
control
your
saying
future?
stupid things.
Yeah, talk about oh God, the one where it's like, wasn't there like something about uh make a wish and Daniel says something how it's already come true. He's talking about her, and I'm like, easy, dude, easy. Like either you fall in love way too easy, or you're just trying to get some. Oh gosh. So, and like, I'm not really entirely sure how old they're supposed to be in this. Like, I assume Daniel was graduating from high school, so he's at least 17.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking that uh, Kumiko is as well.
Hmm.
But, well, yeah, I guess it would be right around there because, Daniel's talking about taking a year off, like, college and then going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, that money that Mr. Miyagi bet on Daniel at that bar, he's going to give to him so he can go to college.
Hmm.
But Yeah, the whole romance angle I felt like was just shoehorned in just to give Daniel something to do. And like I said, this is more of a Miyagi movie than it is a Daniel movie.
Yeah, they definitely focus too much on the side love story.
Yeah. So I got like one last question for you. Who do you think the roughest actor was in this movie?
Mm.
I can give you mine. I think the guy
Uh,
that plays Sato is pretty wooden.
yeah.
Why does he always talk like this?
He made me think of Bloodsport.
Yeah,
You next.
you are next.
Oh, yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, where you leave the T off next.
Yeah.
um, yeah, that guy, he's been in a lot of like, oh, the guy who played Sato, he's been in a lot of like kind of crappy B movies.
Hmm.
Um, there's one where it's like giant robots fighting each other. I can't
Okay.
remember if it's called like Robo Warriors or like something like that. That was sort of like from the 90s. It was a full moon movie, so it's great. Um, but that dude, like I don't know if it's just his character or like maybe his English isn't the best, but I think I believe that voice he does is fake. Like nobody sounds like that. He sounds like a villain in a Bruce Lee movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything else he does, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't seen a whole lot of what he does. I've only seen bits and pieces of like that Robo Warriors or God, there's two. There's like Robot Wars and Robo Warriors or Metal Warriors or something like that. I don't know. They're stupid direct to video movies from the early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you say it, I would probably have to agree with you on he had the weakest performance.
Yeah, and surprisingly, Kumiko wasn't too bad, and that was like her first movie ever.
Yeah, and actually, you want to know an interesting fact about Kumiko?
What?
She, her name Tamlin Tamate,
Yeah.
that we may have said that's pronounced. She was actually born in Okinawa.
Yeah, I did see that fact.
So
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
irony.
That's pretty cool, I guess. But yeah, we can get into grades.
Well,
Um,
before we do,
oh
I had some stuff to mention, kind of.
man, what do you got?
Well, nothing in specifics, but some things I definitely wanted to talk about. Um, and that is one, and so it's definitely difficult to duplicate such a great movie as the first one. So you're gonna miss on some things, but definitely one thing that they missed on was the training.
Yeah,
Like, where the heck was all the training in this? Like, they touched on it. Like, they did some stuff in the little, I can't remember what to call it, the little dojo,
yeah,
and then they did the thing on the dock. He did the little breathing thing and the hammering of the nail, but that was like it. Like,
pretty
with
much.
in the first one, those scenes were longer, if not sometimes like they did multiple things of repeating training to really like drive it home. So, and then all of a sudden, magically at the end, Daniel figures out the secret to karate without being trained. And I was just like, come on, guys.
Yeah, he
Like,
just kind of stumbles across like, oh, all of a sudden he can do the drum technique, and
yeah.
it works.
And he looked a little rough doing it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It was kind of interesting, but yeah, that was but I think the biggest thing, the biggest disappointment and the thing that kind of bummed me out is that they focused too much on the side love story, and then in turn by doing that they missed an opportunity to focus more on the training. Now,
Hmm.
one thing that we didn't talk about, um and we did talk about this in the first Karate Kid movie review, is about Mr. Miyagi's performance.
Yeah.
He did like a really good job with everything with the passing of his dad, because I mean that you
Yeah,
know.
the scene with him kind of sitting on the beach looking out into the water and
Hmm.
um Daniel kind of talking to him about how he felt when his dad passed away.
Yeah, and they did I mean, honestly, like some of those are tough to effectively do, and
Hmm.
that one was, in all intents and purposes, pretty well done. I mean, what they had Daniel say, how they had Mr. Miyagi react to the whole situation, everything. I thought it was pretty well done, and I forgot about that. I did not
Yeah,
remember.
and it just goes to show that, how good a chemistry that Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita had with each other.
Hmm.
Like that it felt real in those scenes. That scene and the scene where in the first one where, we get to see, maybe some of the faults that Mr. Miyagi has when he's drunk
Hmm.
and he has that moment talking about the death of his wife and son.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, those were two things I just wanted to make sure to mention. My thoughts on the training thing, and then Mr. Miyagi's or Pat Morita's great performance with that part of the movie.
Yeah, I agree. That was really a character that he definitely took and made his own.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and through the whole series that he did such a great job as Mr. Miyagi.
yeah.
But we will cover that in the next two that we do. Um, but now I guess we can get into grades. Um, so what do you think the IMDb score is for this?
I kind of that I it kind of got room for me.
Mm.
I know, like I just did it with the other one that we recorded. It worked out fine, but then this stupid one.
It is a 6.1, which I
Mm,
feel like is right in that area. That's a fair score, I'd say. Not as high as the first one, but definitely still a good movie and another movie that a lot of people could just pick up and watch,
yeah.
especially if you're a fan of the first one. Uh, got the Rotten Tomatoes too. There's a critic and an audience. What do you think those are?
Critic, give me, yeah, 58%.
45.
Whoa.
I'm kind of surprised it's that low
Yeah.
because it's not a bad movie.
No. Um, Fan up or down?
It's a little bit up.
Okay. 54?
51.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I think that's the number one thing I miss from suggestions.
yeah.
It's just that that dumb clip. Uh, so we can get into our grades. You want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, well, we've already talked about it too. You, you can't duplicate such a hit and such a classic like The Karate Kid, completely. But this is, really well done. They transferred the feeling of the first movie really well, and they came up with a really good follow-up story.
Hmm.
Total props for that. Execution was not the greatest. The acting definitely takes a step down, and just the entertainment overall is not the same as the first one. So, I think I'm gonna have to go with a 3.5 for this one.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, it's a fairly large step down. I thought about a 4, but it's just not there for me. I mean, this one would not get close to the amount of recommendation as I would with the first Karate Kid. So I'm kind of, I feel like, you know, 3.5 is a good spot to put it at.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. I give it a 4 out of 5. It's one I enjoy, but like you said, it's wouldn't be as high of a recommendation as the first one. And it's kind of one of those, if you enjoyed the first one and you want to see the story continue,
Mm-hmm.
then check it out.
Yeah.
But if you're good with how the first one ended and how that kind of wrapped things up as a story, then you're fine to stay there. You don't really have to venture out to watch the second one.
Yeah.
Um, and we mentioned how there's some corny things in it. The whole love story angle with Daniel and Kumiko is a little ridiculous at times, and then just how crazy that Chosen is, and like the steps he goes into, and basically how sadistic he is. That's a little ridiculous as well. Uh, and there's a lot of slow parts in this movie. Um, I feel like a lot of the interaction with Sato and Miyagi could have been cut back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a scene where Miyagi goes and meets Sato like at his house, and he's out in his yard karate chopping a big plank of wood.
Yeah.
Like, did that really need to be there? Like, what was this all about?
Well,
Nothing
that
really.
I think that was partially well because when they got to Okinawa, there was the image of him chopping through the big log, and then Daniel was just like, "Hey, can you do that?" And then Mr. Miyagi had the great line of, "Not sure, never been attacked by tree." And then, but then they also kind of reapproach it with that, and later it kind of comes up again because Mr. Miyagi karate chops that beam that was on top of Seto.
Sato, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I guess some of the scenes too, some of the montages with Kumiko and Daniel probably could have been cut back a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And uh, yeah, I guess a little bit at the beginning maybe could have been trimmed out too. Uh, but all in all, I feel like it's a pretty solid movie. It's a good '80s teen movie. It does fall in a lot of those cliche tropes of the time, but it's handled rather well, and the characters are strong. We
Hmm.
mentioned Mr. Miyagi being such a great or memorable character, and Daniel this time kind of isn't the douche. He isn't the aggressor as much as he was in the first one. So it's kind of nice to see the change in that character. And he's a little more sympathetic in this one.
Yeah.
And that last fight was pretty good. That was a good build up there at the last fight with Chosen in the temple. But yeah, it's definitely a movie that I enjoy watching every single time.
Yeah. Two quick things to mention, because I feel like we're wrapping up here, but I forgot to say them earlier, is one, I did not understand when the hurricane came why Sato was in the village. And, like he was in a hut, and it's just like, well, dude, that's not your house. Like, what were you doing there?
Yeah, and Chosen was there with him.
Yeah. So that I thought that was weird. But then the other thing that I feel like it's more important to talk about, or at least mention, is Shozen acted like a psychopath and all those things. And it's just like, and then the very end, it's just like, what was your goal, dude? Like, you're going to come in here, you're going to beat up on a girl. And then if you succeed, you're going to kill this guy with no one's supporting you, and you've got like 100 people surrounding the little island that you're standing on.
Yeah.
So there's no escape basically. So just pure insanity, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much like what was his end game with that?
Yeah, I mean, I know he was talking about his honor and everything, and maybe he thought like he would be allowed to kill him because his uncle was going to kill Miyagi originally, and it would have been like condoned, I guess you might say.
Yeah.
But this was kind of completely different. Nobody was really supporting it. He was doing his own thing, and it's just like, dude, even if you're successful at this, like what, like you're done.
You feel good about yourself?
Yeah.
This is where you want to be when Jesus comes back? In the words of Joe Dirt. Um, yeah, I get what you're saying there. It's kind of funny to look at and think about. Um, man, for as decent of a sequel this movie is, we kind of move on next time into an interesting one.
Yeah.
And I say interesting kind of with a smirk and a laugh. Uh, yeah. Next time we'll be talking about The Karate Kid Part 3. And, this is kind of where the series takes an interesting step. But we'll get into that next time. And until then, be kind, rewind.